In this video, we will delve into the movie John Wick Chapter 2. We will discuss its storyline, summarize the plot, and explore the cast and characters. Additionally, we will cover the movie's production details and box office performance. Finally, we will provide reviews and share personal reaction. So let's get started. John Wick Keanu Reeves heads to a warehouse owned by Abram Tarasov Peter Stormare to get his car back. Abram wants to pay back against John for killing his brother Vigo and nephew Joseph. John is killing all of Abram's guards before he finally gets to his car. As he drives away, a whole mess of Abram's goons start attacking John. His car gets banged up, and the henchmen slam into John with their cars. But the man is persistent and easily kills all the goons before making his way to Abram's office. John simply pours Abram and himself a drink. He chooses to spare Abram in a peace offering. Abram questions John as to whether or not he can actually find peace. John returns home to the still unnamed dog he took at the end of the first movie. He calls Arolo John to come pick up the car, which is total wreck. Still, Aurelio claims he can fix it. After he leaves, John reburies his weapons beneath cement as he feels he is done with the assassin life. He watches a video on his phone of himself and he lays his late wife Helen. Later that night, John is visited by another assassin named Santino. He presents John with a marker that John gave him, which is essentially a blood oath used to get out of the assassin life when he decided to be with Helen. Santino wants John to kill his sister, Gianna Claudia Guerini, who is set to ascend to the High Table, a group of powerful assassins. John refuses, despite knowing full well what will happen if he does so. Santino leaves John's house and then grabs an RPG launcher to destroy John's house. Thankfully, the dog survives his destroy. John goes to the Continental Hotel to meet with Winston Land Amseshan to discuss the marker and what Santino has requested of him. Winston cannot do anything about it since John took the oath, and if he continues to refuse it, his life will be up for grabs. John then heads off and leaves the dog in the care of the hotel's Sharon Lance Raddick. John heads off to Rome to complete the task. He stays at the Continental there, owned by Julius. John then meets with several people to get the weapons he needs to kill Gianna. John attends a party that is basically Gianna's coronations. She is accompanied by her loyal bodyguard, Cassian Common. John confronts Gianna alone. He tells her that Santino sent him. She chooses to die on her own terms and slides her wrist. Gianna lays in a pool as she dies. John holds her hand and puts a bullet in her head to make it look like he killed her. Cassian spots John as he is leaving, knowing John is working again. Cassian tries drawing his gun on John, but John is faster. He gets away and starts killing the other hitman that go after him when they find out Gianna is dead. John shoots them all dead as he gets away. Cassian catches up to him and fights him up until they crash through a window of the Continental. Since no blood may be spilled on Continental grounds, John and Cassian sit at the bar to calm their nerves with drinks. John explains to Marker and that Santino sent him to kill his sister. Cassian understands but also cannot allow his ward's killer to go unpunished. He pays for John's drink and leaves. John then spots Ares Ruby Rose, Santino's mute bodyguard. She lets him know through sign language that she will be seeing him. As John is heading back to New York City, Santino puts out $7 million contract to kill John. The contract goes out to all the hidden assassins in the area. A violinist in the subway pulls out a gun from the violin and tries to kill John, but he subdues her and breaks her neck. A heavy-set Asian man goes after John and gets his brain blown out. Two men in the subway try to get in on it, and John brutally kills them with a pencil. Cassian finds John as he gets on the subway and fires him in the train. John stabs Cassian and pushes the knife into the aorta. He tells Cassian that if he pulls the knife out, he will bleed to death. John leaves Cassian on the subway. John runs into an Asian posing as a homeless man and asks for help as to Asian janitors to go after John. The homeless Asian kills the janitors. John goes back to seek from the Brody King and Asians dead ends and they run in with John and was left with a scar on his neck. John spared him. And so now TPK sees himself as unbreakable. He also knows of the boundary of John's head. With BK's help, John is able to locate Santino whereabouts. John heads to a museum where Santino is said to take his place at the high table. John crashes the shining and starts going after all of Santino's men. John chases Santino through a hall of mirrors before having to fight Ares. John manages to stab Ares and leave her to die. Santino rushes to go to the Continental to seek refuge, knowing that he can't be touched there. John finds him in the long. Winston knows what John is about to do and tries to calm him down. Still, John blows Santino's brains out. He then goes to pick up his dog from Sharon. The next day, John goes with his dog to meet with Winston at the park. Winston informs John that because he killed an Continental grounds, the High Table has doubled the contract and sent it to every assassins across the globe. Winston must mark John as excommunicated, but he gives him 1 hour before the contract takes effect. It then becomes evident that every single person in the park is assassin and they have their eyes on John. John tells Winston to let everyone know that if they go after him, he will kill them all. Winston agrees. John leaves as Winston puts the word out. Every passing person looks at John, knowing who is in and they want for him. John is forced to take the dog and keep on running. John Wick is prepared to leave the assassin life behind. But he is visited by Italian crime lord Santino D'Antonio, who presents John with a marker Chad forces John to complete task for him. Santino wants John to kill his sister Gianna so that he can take her place at a council of high-ranking assassins. John goes to Rome to kill Gianna, but she commits suicide to die on her own terms. Santino double-crosses John and puts out a contract for $7 million to any assassin who can kill John. Naturally, John royally messes up anybody that comes his way. John goes after Santino, but Santino goes to the Continental Hotel where assassins are not allowed to spill blood. John disobeys the rules and kills Santino in the long. The contract is doubled and goes international, forcing John to go on the run. In the weekend box office, holdover news that is not Logan or Get Out. Lionsgate's This Shack grossed a strong $10 million, minus 38% second weekend. That will give the $20 million faith-based drama a decent $32.26 million 10-day cum. It's not Gore's noted level legs, but it's really close to the 36%. It's not Gore's not jet level X, but it's really close to the 36% second weekend drop, $40 million in April of 2014 of Heaven in For Real, which had a $22 million Friday to Sunday, $29 million Wednesday to Sunday debut. So yeah, it's another small-scale winner for Lionsgate. Meanwhile, Warner Bros. Time Warner, the Lego Batman movie is still the year's biggest domestic grosser for another few days. It earned $7.82 million, minus 33% over its fifth weekend for a new $159 million domestic and $255 million worldwide total. Beauty and the Beast will surpass both Logan and the Lego Batman movies soon enough, but for the moment, the two biggest grossers this year in North America are two polar opposite comic book superhero movies. Amusingly enough, if you remove the first day of Batman Beginnings Wednesday to Sunday debut $24 million, the Lego Batman is passing almost identically to the Chris Nolan film is North America. Open Road Films Before I Fall earned $3.1 million minus 34% on its second weekend. That gives the somewhat acclaimed and shamefully unseen by me teen melodrama a $9 million 10-day total on a $5 million budget. It's not a blockbuster, but it may not be a flop if it can hold out for a week or two. And yeah, as soon as our schedule align, I would like to take my kid to this one. Hidden Figures and had another teeny drop with $2.765 million minus 28% over the weekend for a $162.865 million domestic total. It arrives on digital HD on March 28 and DVD Blu-ray on April 1. So we will see how long these teeny drops can continue. But cut this weekend's obligatory jaw drop for this film, Obscene Legs. Speaking of folks, Table 19 last weekend's other new release outside of Logan and Before I Fall earned $850 million on its second weekend for a $2.986 million 10-day total. Catch it while you can, and John Wick Chapter 2 is handling it there even its played screens. The Keanu Reeves action sequel earned $2.7 million minus 43% in the fifth weekend for a new domestic and $153 million worldwide cum. $100 million domestic and or $200 million worldwide probably is not gonna happen, but it's still a big win. Oh, and land across $400 worldwide on Thursday. So Lionsgate has that going for it too. The Emma Stone Ryan Gosling musical grossed $1.77 million minus 40% on its 14th weekend for a new $148.4 million domestic and $41.6 million worldwide total. In other romance news, Universal Comcast Crops 50 Shades Darker earned another $1.629 million minus 54% in its fifth weekend for a new $112.922 million domestic and $368 million worldwide cum on a $55 million budget. In other odds and ends, Fist Fight grossed $30 million domestic with a $132.5 million minus 53%. Fourth weekend, and Loin has now earned $114 million worldwide. The Great Wall has $327 million worldwide on a $150 million budget, while Split has $248 million worldwide on a $9 million budget, which means the M. Night Shyamalan film will soon surpass the $248.1 million cum of The Unbreakable back in 2000. A Dark Purpose has now made $140 million worldwide on a $22 million budget, thanks particularly to a surprisingly strong run in China, $36 million as if this past Friday. Barry Jenkins' Moonlight earned another $1 million minus 56% as it winds down for a new $26.994 million domestic total. That puts it past The Witch and X to become A24's biggest grosser ever. And what Disney, which debuted on DVD Blu-ray this past Tuesday, has now earned $596 million worldwide thanks to strong $6.3 million debut in Japan. And now to be outdone, Illuminations has earned $5.771 million worldwide. And next weekend sees the wide release of BS Styles the Balco Experiment and Walt Disney Beauty and the Beast, while Sony drops T2 transporting into 5 theaters. It has been a good week for arbitrary milestone for recent hit movies. Warner Bros. Time Warner, the Lego Batman movie earned a solid $4.275 million, minus 42% on its third Friday, to bring its domestic cume to $118.2 million. We can expect an $18.3 million weekend, minus 44% for a new $132.3 million, 17 days total. Bearing a massive downturn, we are still looking at an over under $170 million domestic cume for the $18 million animated spin-off, with plenty more to come overseas, so yeah, it's still a hit. Lionsgate Summit a John Wick Chapter 2 and another $2.5 million, minus 40% for a stronghold on Friday number 3, setting the stage for an $8.65 million, minus 47% third weekend and reboost $74 million domestic total. The Keanu Reeves action sequel will top out with at least $90 million, but it needs a stronghold next weekend against Logan to have a prayer of $100 million plus domestic. Actually, it has already earned over $100 million worldwide, besting the $86 million worldwide cume of the first John Wick, with more to come. Universal Comcast crops blemish on another otherwise superb last few months. The Great Wall continued to crumble in North America. The Matt Damon action fantasy earned $2.361 million, minus 60% for a likely $8 million, minus 57% second weekend, and $33.7 million 10 days total. It could have been worse, but it will be happy to clear $50 million domestic at this point. Of that's enough to push the $150 million revision etc. production over $300 million worldwide. In better news, Fifi shares Dorker has already topped $300 million worldwide on a $55 million budget, no less. The Dakota Johansson Jamie Dornan erotic trauma made another $2.6 million, minus 61% on its third Friday, for a likely $7.767 million, minus 62% weekend, and $103.6 million 17 days total. The sequel had $207 million overseas and $303 million worldwide heading into the weekend. So we are at least looking at a $350 million plus global total. So yeah, this is still a huge hit, even with a total below the first film's below out figures. 20th Century Fox's Hidden Figures continues to pack them in. The $25 million historical dramedy earned another $1.585 million, minus 40% for a likely $5.7 million, minus 19% weekend, and whopping $152.64 million domestic total. No matter how well it does at tomorrow's Academy Awards, its huge winner, less of a winner, is Warner Bros. New Line's first fist fight. The Ice Cube Charlie J comedy earned $1.777 million, minus 53% on its second Friday, for a likely $5.82 million, minus 52% weekend, and $22.7 million 10-day total. It will top its $25 million budget, but it will need solid overseas business to actually make money. Summit and Lionsgate Land continues to dance its way to Oscar-powered glory. The Emma Stone Ryan Gosling musical, which has gone from being a critical darling to a parable of Trump America, whose Best Picture Oscar win will be All Sworn needs to cover all the hands in darkness, earned another $1.23 million, plus 80%, for a likely $4.75 million, plus 4% weekend, and $141 million domestic total, as it races towards $400 million worldwide. By the by, Moonlight will end the Oscar season with $22.5 million, while Manchester by the Sea will end tomorrow with $46.8 million as Arrival becomes the third Best Picture nominee to cross $100 million domestic. M. Night Shyamalan split and another $1.173 million minus 38% on its sixth Friday for a likely $4 million minus 43% weekend and $130.8 million domestic total. But the $9 million thriller will have around $220 million worldwide tomorrow, making it Blumhouse's biggest domestic and worldwide grosser of all time, if it is not already. Paranormal Activity 3 earned $207 million back in 2011. The Oscar season's other big winner, Loin, will earn around $3.77 million minus 10% over the weekend to bring the Dev Patel, Nicole Kidman drama domestic total up to $42.7 million. Not so Oscar, a drug purpose, will earn around $3.43 million minus 40% in weekend 5 for a $57.44 million domestic total. Last weekend, most tragic wave Gore, A Cure for Wellness, dropped a harsh 72% on its second Friday, with a $430,000 gross leading to a likely $1.345 million minus 68% weekend and $7.53 million 10-day total for the ambitious but unsuccessful $40 million horror films. John Wick Chapter 2 review a bigger, bloodier sequel. Well executed follow-up ramps up the shootouts, leaving Keanu Reeves never more than 9 mm from a bloody gun battle. John Wick, Keanu Reeves' first hit in almost a decade, arrives in 2014 as a brisk, limber counterblast to the access of the Marvel and Fast and Furious universes. Configured by ex-stuntman Stahelski towards non-virtual, live-on-location fisticuffs, the sequel succumbs to Hollywood inflations, cranking up the budget, volume, and running time, and pitching Reeves' reluctant assassin into new forms of carnage every 15 minutes, climaxing with a gallery shoutout that underlines the film's aspirations to top pop art. That carnage can fill with your gammy, yet it remains imaginatively designed and executed. Is among the few action directors whose big guns still pointedly demand reloading. The impact, however, gets muffled by extra layer of the nerdy under world building through which the first movie cuts, such as stylish dash business with metaphysical ledger and gold coins carries the non-too thrilling wave of accountancy. One-bladed ghost additions return us to the Matrix movie. Tertios footnotes any franchise implying better. Serafinovich, as its Q via Alfred figure, surely retains some sense of humor about the nonsense is battling, and Chapter 2 will pass a Friday or Saturday night as mindlessly as its predecessor, yet if the third installment, excitingly trailed here, runs much beyond 2 hours, stand objections should be lodged with the Ombudsman. Of all the characters Keanu Reeves has played since hanging up news sunglasses a decade and change ago, it's probably fair to say he did not expect John Wick to be the one of stick around. When the hirsute hitman first showed up in the self-titled 2014 films, it seemed to be just another entry in the recent cycle of Gary action movie. Alto Reeves then just about to hit 50 might have balked at the description. That year alone it shared multiplex time with Denzel Washington's The Equalizer, Kevin Costner 3 Day to Kill, and the grandity of Demon. Liam Neeson's is taken 3. On the surface, John Wick seemed to be the same old guff about the world-class assassin called out of a peaceful retirement when he loses something near and dear to him. But from the off, it was perfectly coiffed head and shoulders above the competitions, with a slight, seriously stylish swagger and a darker, more playful wit. It's now to that of Wick's wife that puts him back in the game. But his new puppy and the theft of his car, if did well enough to warrant a second go around. The title chapter 2 indicates that it's part of a larger work, and the predictable play would be to simply add the controls of the first movie for a while. That's where this seems to be going, picking up almost immediately after the first movie ends with the protected and prosperous sequences of car flow. From there, it slides into familiar territory, an attack on Vick's home. The presence of Thomas said friendly cop Jimmy, you working again, John. A visit to Hitman Hotel the Continental with its enigmatic front desk manager, Sharon, and gorgeously manager, only the dog is different. Then against his will bound by a blood debt to slimy gangster, Santino Wick winds up in Italy and the game dramatically changes. After a fun montage where Wick suits up, tools up, and cheeks up in the Rome branch of the Continental leaves a great review on TripAdvisor. The film begins to move away from the predictable rhythms of retreat the original movie and a quirky vein running throughout in the form of criminal underworld governed by contract and honor, where bespoke gold coins are the currency. Chapter 2 expands upon that mythology and in doing so doubles down on the weirdness. One scene where Vic prepares to take down a mark suddenly lurches into a whole unexpected and quitter reflection on mortality and guilt. Derek Kolstad's screenplay never quite heads in the direction you expect. As chapter go, this is quite the page turner. Vic is a man of few words but many bullets. Its role that fits Reeves like a glove. Still, an action film can be as stylish and odd as all get out, but it matters not if it skims on the actual action. That's not an issue here. Returning director Stark, operating this time with Dot creative partner David Leitch, crafts a succession of stunning slaughter scenes as the plot kicks in and Vic, using that particular stab shooting methods of his, finds himself dealing with some of the world's best assassins. Gorgeously shot by DP Dan Lawson, only one sequences and escape attempts through Roman catacombs or stays its welcome. And when the brutality, there are more headshots aired than on a casting director's desk. Theaters to overwhelm leaves Daddy Stone with traces of sly humor. You will smile at Lawrence Fishburne's snowing cameo, making this a Matrix reunion. You will laugh at a sequence where Vic and one rival take silly silence pot shots at each other in a crowded public area, like it's playing cops and robbers with their fingers and striding through it all like a cutter closer is Reeves. Keanu famously means "Coup breeze" over G mountains in Hivalin. Here it should stand for "cool beer shoots you in the face." Vic is a man of few words but many bullets. It's a role that fits the taciturn Reeves like a glove. Few actors can boast one great action role with this. Ennio Spears, Jack Tremont, and Point Break's Johnny Reeves is up for 4, not bad for a jury action star, a brutal brushing bullet ballad of sequel that builds upon the promise of the original. Characters keep asking if John Wick is back. Yeah, we are thinking he is back. John Wick might have more bodies on his hands than any movie's character ever. He and the films is inhabits are deadly serious and supreme fun. The notion that any one man can be so dangerously untouchable in a world inhabited by men and women, singularly defined by how dangerous they are is a promises, but in the weak hours it works. You can tell Keanu Reeves is having a blast playing an analog of the Punisher, all ID and driven by vengeance for both Wick and the Punisher. The guns are characters in the story, and both will fire like extensions their own bodies. The pistol is to Wick as lightsbar are to Jed, and if the suit does indeed make the man, Wick does not disappoint it. The story of John Wick 2 is not manifestly different than anything we have seen before in other shoot first films, but those movies don't have Keanu Reeves. The international setting is a great fit for expanding the mythology. A host for minor yet impactful character actor pepper the film with manic energy, even if we are asked to overlook the absurdity that seemingly every citizen, even the violent player, is an assassin. Everyone quite literally has a gun pointed at him, but Vic, despite occasionally wincing in pain, is essentially invisible. Let's call it taken syndrome, a conditions wherein each sequel or protagonist becomes less of human and more of an invulnerable superhero. As a result, the emotional core noticeably erodes with each new offering. Chapter 2 has more action but it's lesser film than the original. Weak motivation in the first was clear, while in this iterations is playing, trying to survive until the end. It's still a blast to watch and pick Keanu Reeves in a treat. Shout out to Common for a great turn as mid-level boss. If they used a stunt double for him, I could not tell. John Wick 2 receives a score of 6.5 by 10 for general audiences and an 8 by 10 for fans of Reeves and stalwart Wick franchise. There is a moment in John Wick 2 that tells you everything you need to know about the title character played with single-minded, impressively silly focus by Keanu Reeves, one of my future husbands. It's a small scene in movie, full of excellent ones, but amid all the amazing action sequences boggling your mind, this is glimpse into Wick's interior life, an understanding of the man inside the perfect tailored suits with all the stylish guns. Now, to be fair, you probably know everything you truly need to know about John Wick from the mind-bogglingly good 2014 films. But it's this particular scene in John Wick 2, about midway through the film, that reinforces the kind of guy this is. He is concerned the person he is being paid to kill. He lets them know what's about to happen. Things don't quite as he planned. And in the last moment of that person's life, he holds their hand as they die, and then shoots them into the head of good mayor. Vic will provide you with a moment of compassion, but he will also finish the job. He is horrendously efficient and terrifyingly good at killing people with guns, with knives and with cords, and especially with his own two hands. But his own experience of loss has affected how he interacted with others going through the same thing. Even when that person is mourning the impending end of their own life at Wick's command, let us never forget that the entire promise of John Wick begins with life cruelty, unnecessarily taken with a wife's time, stolen by disease, and a puppy's potential ended by John Greyjoy. That Godman, I goddamn idiot. John Wick knows everything there is to know about drawing. Just like Maeve in Westworld, he's fucking great at all. John Wick 2 picks up almost immediately after the first John Wick ended, with the assassin who is, in fact, back tracking down his beloved car and using it to smash to bits the Russian gangsters who continue coming after him. As in, he literally keeps driving his car into people. Peter Stormare's face when he realizes what Wick has arrived to reclaim his Mustang Cobra is a thing of beauty, a slack-jawed acceptance of the devastations and bloodshed that he is powerless to stop. Wick being back in the game, even if to exact revenge against Rick, it rhymes with Wick. Change things, and Stormare's character is not the only who knows it. What has also reached Santino D'Antonio, played by Riccardo Scamarcio, who curiously looks exactly like a young Javier Bardem, who engineered Wick's prior retirement. Now what Wick is active again. Santino wants a favor, and because of the sort of blood oath that Wick agreed to when Santino's coordinated his retirement, he owes the preening Italian crime lord. And just for good measure, D'Antonio destroys Wick's gorgeous home to underscore the point. Wick will do this final job for Santino, or Wick will be disgraced among the assassin community he has lived in for so long. And in this world, where Wick has been known for years as Baba Yaga, the bogeyman, to renege on a promise would look very bad indeed. So Wick gets pulled again into what he thought he left behind. Consulting Winston Lan Amseshan, the owner of the Assassin's Continental Hotel, for advice, traveling to Rome for his assessment. Retreating into the back room of a sweet shop to have his measurements taken for a new suit, meeting with the sommelier, excellently played by Pater, having a grand old time, who looks him up with some new guns while throwing around the trumps in the extant gag that I could have watched for 2 more hours, and all the while he is trailed by Santino's personal bodyguard, Ares, who keeps her eyes on him. The implied threat clear: if he does not do the job just right, he will have to answer her. In a loose way, John Wick 2 recreates some of the step pieces of its predecessor, but it does pursue the bigger, bloodier, louder vibe that so many sequels do. Wick seems to kill something like a bajillion people, and the shootouts are longer. More or less, you will get widely used to brain splatter after about 30 minutes, just about through an Italian mansion's catacombs in an instance, worldwide of perspectives and long takes, a final fight in an art installation that is essentially a house of mirrors is thrillingly weakest. If there's one flaw, is that some of the original John Wick's gracefulness seems sacrificed for extended sequences that prioritize the body count above all else. But still, this is a movie that trusts Keanu to step up, to throw around his body and exert his physically over nearly everyone else. He does a damn fine job. What I wanted at the end of John Wick 2 was more of common, who plays an assassin that clearly has history with Wick, and who seems to be the only character who can really go to toy with him. More of Lawrence Fishburne, who plays the Bowery King, a character who organizes that seems like an army of informations all over New York City. More of the mythology and the world building that these films have done so well, luckily for all of us. Seems like a John Wick 3 is the works perhaps after Keanu and I take our honeymoon. We are very busy people. After a campy opening action sequence that must have been ordered up by a studio boob looking for something more light. Shoot 'em up, hack 'em up, John Wick Chapter 2 settles into one of the blackest bloodbaths you will see outside an actual war movie. It's more crazy, violent, and funereal to grim of guiltless kicks, but in its way quite beautiful. The carnage is abstract, ritualized like something out of Cabico theater, where even the most senseless brutality has from rules of order. The first John Wick had its champions, I wasn't among them, but next to its sequel, it seems cartoonishly thin. It begins, you will recall, with the abnormal ex-super assassin Keanu Reeves mourning his wife, who has just died from natural causes. Vic is the relict after a psychotic bully, the son of Slavic kingpin, steals his vintage automobile and kills the puppy that had been his wife's last gift. Action movie premises don't come much more elemental. John Wick Chapter 2 is built on something comparatively complicated to resign from a club that does not let its member to go lightly. Wick apparently gives his marker a fancy coin to a sleek Italian hood named Santino D'Antonio Riccardo Scamarcio as the movie proper begins. Santino shows up as John's secluded modernist house in the New York suburbs. Wick is dulling the gods by moving into a place with so many floor-to-ceiling windows. People who live in glass house should not fire CA 415 assault rifles. He wants John to murder his mob boss sister. Santino's mob boss sister, not John's. John does not appear to have any family except his new dog and his wife in flashbacks. Wick abhors the task, but to refuse would mean that. To accept would likely mean that too, but Wick would at least have rightness on the side. Keanu is most excellent when he is righteous. The movie instantly improves when Wick strides into the Tony Continental Hotel, which caters to the most violent people on earth, but where violence is verboten, is presided over by charmingly fatalistic land obsession as Winston, a man who has seen and done many brutal things, but whose sense of decorum is matchless. He calls John Jonathan, which drew me since the motive of Jonathan is John. Perhaps John Wick was originally Jonathan Wickstein. Lance Reddick, with an Afro-Caribbean accent, plays the elaborately formal desk clerk, Sharon, who welcomes Mr. Wick with what seems like a glimmer of actual affection, a passing nod from one river Styx pure soul to another. In the hotel's room branch run by Franco Nero as Julius, Wick acquires his elegant, bulletproof wardrobe and yummy array of weapons. The latter from the great pattern, the sommelier, then he heads for Rome to meet his prayer and his destiny. What follows has little logic and less credibility, but that's minor credible. The ancient catacombs are a mythic setting for a battle between a demigod and a wave of phantoms near enormous figures that rush from the blue mist and are promptly sent back into it. Pine willingly gore deep body count of John Wick Chapter 2 is stratospheric, but the assailants are not weightless and interchangeable as in a video game. Stahelski is a former stunt double and is choreographs the action is breathtaking long takes, and if to create a rate of spring of gore hounds each kill more convulsive than the last. Each attacker a nastier gag sprung by Sonafevich gods, and Stahelski tops himself in the final battle sequence. in which particularly every Manhattan denizen, homeless or high-toned, turns out to be an assassin in search of the $7 million bounty on Wick's head. The third act, being astride the fountain at Lincoln Center, continues into new Collateral path sessions, pretentious white subterranean passageways, and reach its climax in a geographically absurd and graphically mesmerizing Odysseus through the subway system. That ending in a museum hall of mirrors, in which the mirror also paints Spain to spit out even more bad tidings. Is such a tour de force that when the voice of Santino starts taunting the mirrored Wick about his dual nature, you don't laugh at the movie, you laugh with it. For a movie so visual, how many shades of blue can you count? John Wick Chapter 2 has quite a clear script. Direct constant anchors that abstract action with good. Speaking passage of dialogue, Winston lines are loaded with potent Santino's grinning, deaf, mute sidekicks are as Ruby Rose conveys in sign language that seem positively diabolical. She fires superbly too. Reeves' old Matrix mentor Lawrence Fishburne has a juicy scene as the Willy Bowery King, the Lord of Bombs. Some of the best exchanges are between rival warriors, Johan and Cassian's common. The latter are truly decent fellow compelled by protocol to kill the man who killed his ward, and also compelled to sip a drink with him civilly in the confines of the Continental. It's worth asking out John Wick Chapter 2 finally transcends its drag genre maybe just, but it's still drag adjacent. I would be hypnotic true if I moralized about the evil of spending 2 hours watch dudes get royally wasted when many times I wake up at 3 or 4 in the morning and turn on the TV in search of something violent. No matter how shitty, no matter if it stars Steven Seagal or Sylvester Stallone, I save Ozu and Bresson for early evenings. John Wick Chapter 2 is the apotheosis of a 3 a.m. cable value, and loving it does not corrupt you. Near the end, there is shoot out in fancy art museum, where the white walls are splattered with blood, but the paintings remain untouched. The movie says that even in real hell, there is such a thing as decorum. Scott Melso, CGQ.com cult critic. Let's get full disclosure out of the way up front. You and I are not just John Wick's fans, we are John Wick's super fan. John Wick's actual gun trunk from the first movie is currently taking up most of my apartment. You recently changed your Twitter name and your actual name to Josh Wick. So, given that we are both about Wicks, did Chapter 2 live up to your massive expectations? Yes, which is kind of weird, right? One of the things that was so great about the first John Wick was how unexpected it was. The plot is the sort of a thing college improv trouble would come up with, but it knew that and then layered this really ornate yet simple mythology on top of it with the hotel and the shared code of all these assassins. It's just layered absurdity trading together some of the most efficient and clean action we would see in a while. The second time around, the trend becomes a bite of hurdle. You can't really surprise in the same way. And doing something like upping the action set pieces too much or making the story too good would seem like a betrayal. John Wick Chapter 2. Trust that needle and it's really remarkable. Scott, I was going to ask you which one you kill later. Liked later. But I don't really think that's a fair question. Chapter 2 picks up right where the original left off and continues the story and this trial and the overall John Wick insights of divulging so effortlessly that it basically plays like the back half of a 4-hour movie. But I have to admit, there was a moment earlier in chapter 2 when I started to lose faith. The brilliant thing about the original John Wick is that it managed to get us in the corner of a broadly immoral contact killer by making the stack as personal as possible. Why would I cheer for John Wick, who was scummy enough to devote most of his life to killing people for money? Because after he tried, similarly old John showed up and killed the puppy his late wife bought him to help him get over debt. I don't care what else have done. If John Graves kills your dog, I am definitely on your side until your bloody revenge is complete. Chapter 2 has a harder task because John, however, reluctantly plays a old debt by performing a hit on someone who clearly does not deserve it. On a pure, visceral level, this is still the gold standard for crisp, perfectly staged action, but I found it harder to enjoy all the carnage when John was straight up murdering dozens of security guards who were basically just doing their jobs. Joshua. This touched on a thing that's been wired of me lately. I have gotten harder for me to enjoy movies where lots of people just get gunned down for no good reason. There are a lot of innocent bystanders in several of chapter 2. It's big action of asset pieces. But interestingly, the movie does not show anyone getting hurt or killed that movies assassins don't explicitly set out to wreck. This could be just the filmmakers trying not to veer in the direction of bad taste. But I also want to believe that the hitman is John Wick are so good that even when they miss, they don't hit anyone they don't intend to hit, which ties into another reason why the movie charmed in a way around my new friend's sensitivity to violence, all that ridiculous lore. Scott, so much I was delighted. Chapter 2 doubles down on the insanity of the original by introducing at least a dozen new aspects of this elaborate mythology. My personal favorite is very polite gun expert called the Sommelier, who talks about the various level differences between formats. The way of being expert might explain the differences between a couple of cabinets. By the end of this movie, I started to wonder if there are any New Yorkers who are not somehow connected to this secret society of international assassins. Also, John seems to be fluent in very every language on earth, including Russian, Italian, and Swan language. What's your take on chapter 2? Various explanations to the week's verse. Joshua, as I mentioned before, this is tricky territory of John Wick. You want to know a little more about this wide society of assassins, but you don't want to know everything or to go too deep because then it will start to fall apart. I think chapter 2 walks right up to that lines, showing just how ridiculously surprising this world is but stopping just shy of crossing a threshold where it starts to become dissonant. This is probably because the movie does not really have John interacting with anyone who is not part of this world. It helps maintain the illusion that this all makes some kind of wide sense. Scott, I did appreciate how much chapter 2 opened the world up, particularly the extended trip to Rome. At one point, a Jude asked John if he is there to kill the people, and I was desperately crossing my fingers for a surprise young Pope crossover. Now that we have blown this thing international, where would you want to see John Wick go? Honestly, a local with more brown people in it. That's the fun of the shadow cable, right? That the Continental Hotel and its rules are worldwide. We get to see the Roman Continental in this one. So we got some great old world European flavor thrown in. But what does the Continental look like in Rio, San John, Catacombs? It's an easy way to change things without breaking things too much because the movie RC of the world, the more it starts to scratch credibility. And I am curious to see how John Wick will keep in all under control if they decided to keep going. Scott, what's your take on the new dog? I sort of expected him to be John's new sidekick. So I was a little disappointed he has set out so much of the actual adventure. Joshua, the movie definitely needed more drags. I like drags. Scott, what about the nude bad guys? Anybody you particularly liked or did not? I thought Ruby Rose, the mute contract killer, was pretty good. Joshua, John Wick Chapter 2 does have a bit of bad guy problem. The villain is kind of boring but really good at his function. Needingly John Wick and exploiting the rules of the Continental to get under the skin. More interesting is common characters, Cassius, who spends a lot of the movie carrying out a personal grudge whilst trying to remain professional about it. It would have been kind of great if John and the actual villain and that level of chemistry, but you can't have it all. Scott, in the end, my biggest complaint is that John Wick Chapter 3 did not start playing immediately after the credits rolled. Joshua, Joshua, and you know there is going to be Chapter 3. I hope that Jack gets a gun. I hope he gets like 8 guns. I hope he gets 8 guns and a really freaking sweet motorcycle slider and has to save John Wick from Pedro Pascal and Antonio Banderas, but not before the Rex Digimon. The following contains spoilers for the end of John Wick Chapter 2, which you would know if you read this brief headline, which again is whose marketed John Wick received at the end of Chapter 2. The John Wick franchise is like an infinite string of dominoes. A bunch of jerks murdered the dude's puppy in the first film. Not even this dog, his puppy, he would only had it for like a day. You monsters, and that set off a chain of violent events that reached its zenith in John Wick. Chapter 4. One of the cool things about this franchise is the way each movie builds off the previous ones. Coming out of retirement to achieve puppy-related revenge in John Wick directly leads to an old friend returning to demand John payback a debut depth in John Wick. Chapter 2. John tries to kill that same old friend in Chapter 2, forces him to go on the run in John Wick Chapter 3, Parabellum, and so on. You can say these movies are just over-the-top action for its own sake, but that's not true. Okay, the over-the-top part is true. They are over-the-top in the best way possible. But John Wick does not enjoy his violent escapes the way we do. He's pretty much been playing for them non-stop since the start of the first film. Violent retribution in these films are like ripples in a font, forever expanding outward, except for one element that, as far as I can tell, was introduced and never paid off. It's the scene since embedded below for the end of John Wick, Chapter 2. Keanu Reeves has committed the ultimate it's this world. He killed someone on the ground of the Continental, the lavish hotel that caters to the criminal underworld of the John Wick inwards at the start of the film. Santino, Riccardo, Scamarcio demands John Wick repay a debt to him by committing a murder on his behalf. Then, after John fulfills their deal, Santino tries to kill John to tie up loose ends. When John comes after Santino in response, the latter takes refuge inside. When John arrives, Santino announces his intention to take an extended. Can you blame him? The stick looks incredible. John decides it's a duel with it and shoots Santino in the head, right in front of the Continental manager Winston. And so, in the final scene of John Wick, Chapter 2, Winston announces that John is now excommunicated, meaning that he can no longer avail himself of the weapons and services of the Continental Hotel or any other affiliated underworld business. Markers in the John Wick universe are samples of a debt that must be repaid of above all else. When Santino comes to John demanding he repay him, he presents him with one of these markers. Years earlier, Santino had helped John retire from his life as a hitman. In exchange, John had given him a marker. So, Winston handing John a marker in this scene is no small thing. We look at the markers like a blank check. John Wick series director told me in recent interview, a marker means you are giving me your soul. Like it's good for one life, you risk your life. You take a life, you save a life. It's good for one's life. Stahelski says he has an original John Wick writer Goldstad evolved their marker concept out of real-world challenge coins, which are best would upon members of military and law enforcement organizations for outstanding service. It's very old school mentality, explains, but a lot of these kinds of occupations still have them. And in the stunt world, we had a friend pass away between John Wick 1 and 2. And we all had challenge coins made, and we started talking. I was working with Colstad on the script, and I am like, we gotta have these things. Stahelski explains, but a lot of these kinds of occupations still have them. And in the stunt world, we had a friend pass away between John Wick 1 and 2. And we all had challenge coins made. And we started talking. I was working with Derek Colstad on the script. And I am like, we gotta have these things. We gotta have markers. Well, markers are cool. But what does it mean? And we started it off kind of like a thing, but then it ended up being like a blank check. One life. Take it, save it, give it. Whatever, it's one life. But the question still remains. Whose life was wrapped up in the markers at the end of John Wick? Chapter 2. Amongst John Wick fans, there is some debate about what is this marker even represents. Google John Wick 2 marker and you will see what I mean. Winston did not reveal whose marker he gave Johan, and it could have potentially belonged to several people. It could be totally blank marker John could use if he encountered someone later down the road. It could be marker that John holds on someone else and that he had previously asked Vincent to hold on to for him. Or it could be the completed marker between Santino and John that becomes so important to the plot of John Wick. Chapter 2. The marker was evidence that John only committed the Creole killing in Chapter 2 to fulfill this debt, and he theatrically could have used it to prove he was acting on Santino's behalf. But whatever Stahelski and Colstad had in mind when they made Chapter 2, they have explained in the John Wick Chapter 3, and in fact, the first few scenes of Chapter 3 involves John retrieving another marker he needs from the New York Public Library. That one turns out to represent a debt that a character played by Halle Berry owes him. So I ask, who is connected to this marker? That's good questions, man, he replied. We took it from the standpoint that Winston owes him a solution. We thought, Stahelski continued, it would be cool if the final farewell from Winston to John was okay. Just so you know how much of a father figure I am going to give you a blank check in case you need it. But only call it in if you need it. And that's where we left it. Without spoiling John Wick, Chapter 4, This mysterious marker does not come up there either, which prompted in this to me to ask follow-up questions. Is this marker still floating out there somewhere, waiting for John to cash it in? Well, Winston, an interesting character. Stahelski notes he's always got an angel, so I think that Winston thinks John did cash it in on the rooftop in chapter 3. So, to recap that scene in chapter 3, John Wick is declared excommunicated and essentially has to go on the run from the entire criminal underworld because of massive bounty placed on his head. At the same time, he high table basically the bosses for all crime in this universe. For Winston, from his gig at the Continental, finding him not sufficiently loyal, John swears a new oath to the high table and is sent to kill Winston, but instead teams up with him. The high table then the Continental and send waves of goons in a charter bus with their high table logo stuck decide to kill them both. Then the high table of offers a parley to Winston, kill John Wick and get your job and the hotel back. Winston agrees and shoots John, who falls off the roof of the Continental to the street below. But Winston deliberately shoots John in his coward suit, and so John survives to seek more revenge in John Wick Chapter 4. To mind the way that Winston carried out his killing in such a way that it was sure not to kill John Wick, or was he way up playing back the marker? He had John, but not in the way John would have wanted, but it was only way out. I am fascinated by the idea of dilemma. Choices are always what defines character, not skills, so we constantly in every scene we are trying to put somebody in a bad choice. If you watch John Wick Chapter 4, hopefully every scene you go, there's no good choice here. So yes, Joe needed help in 3, and Lan gave it to him, just not in the way he wanted. So there you have it. Of course, none of these ways explicitly spelled out on screen. There's always a chance Stahelski and his writers could change their minds and use the marker in another John Wick movie, or even the upcoming spin-off. You never know when a good marker might come in handy. John Wick Chapter 4 opens in theaters on March 24. Coming out of retirement or vacations. Notable example, A Good Day to Die Hard. An action hero is just about to enjoy his retirement or a relaxing vacations when he immediately gets roped into his next mission. It always seems to go that way. Why? Does not it? Whether judged by experience or visioned by age. Many eschew a life of perilous action to enjoy some domesticity and peace. That is, until they get the call, J.R. back in. But don't think for a second that they won't be up complaining the entire time. To quote Danny Glover's character from the Lethal Weapon series, I am getting too old for this. Running in heels. Notable examples. Jurassic World Catwoman's informs. Ginger Rogers is quoted as saying, "A woman can do everything a man can do, but backwards and in high heels." But we don't think that she meant he's literally. The way that so many action movies seem to. Action flicks often require character to run as fast as they can, which is hard enough without 6-inch stilettos, and yet for some reasons, so many heroines manage to sprint without taking off their heels first. It would be one thing if their running was actually affected by their footwear, but their speed of agility is not hindered at all. Saving the villain. Notable example. Daredevil in the line of fire. Spider-Man No Way Home. Some movies establish a clear villain right from the get-go. Others take their sweet time, revealing who the big bad is. using his act as an opportunity for a major plot twist. But once these villains have made their presence known, it's pretty clear that the protagonists want to take them down, or at least stop them from wreaking havoc on unsuspecting civilians. Which is why it's so crazy that, when given the opportunity to strike the villain down, so many heroes choose to spare their adversary. It's admirable on the part of the protagonist, but it's just not realistic. Attackers patiently wait their turn. Notable example: Kill Bill Volume 1, Constantine, The Matrix Revolutions. This glitch exists as more of a practical filmmaking technique than anything else, but it can really look bizarre in certain scenarios. Basically, when a gang of villains plans on attacking the protagonist, they do so one at a time. While it would make way more sense to storm the hero all at once, this would add to a very convoluted, very messy fight scene. A one fight is more cleaner to shoot and can also extend the action for longer. It does look pretty silly when the bad guys are patiently waiting their turn to fight. Invisible man characters. Notable examples: How to Kill, Out for Justice, Commando, Rambo. We are not talking about genetically altered superheroes who are canonically invisible. Rather, we are referring to human action heroes who somehow manage to survive every gunshot, every wound, and every punch without so much as a scratch. In real life, blood loss is a very present concern. One stab, and you would at last have to sit it out for a while. But these protagonists continue to move forward unscathed, which is pretty badass but also wildly unrealistic. Taking time bomb. Notable examples: Cold Fingers, The Dark Knight Rises. Look, the ticking time bomb prop is actually pretty cool. It's an effective way to infuse our scenes with tension, raising the stakes at sky high level. The real problem with this haughty amount of time remaining on clock and never actually coordinate with the length of the scene. While it can be chalked up to the magic of editing, it's still pretty odd to have a scene stretch on when you know very well that the clock is nearly at zero. Ending in romance. Notable examples: Speed, Jurassic World, Indiana Jones, and the Raiders of the Lost Ark, The Matrix. As Keanu Reeves' characters Speed so puts in relationships that start under intense circumstances that never last, and yet somehow, in Reeves' Speed and many other action films, the main guy and girl almost always get together romantically after they have undergone the most traumatic experience of their lives. Movies in general tend to put a more romantic spin on life. So it's not surprising that this bleeds into the action genre. As much as we love punching and gunfights, a well-earned kiss can cause an audience to glare. It's just that in real life, that odds if you are you being trapped inside a careening bus with a mega hottie or low, and the odds of you guys totally hitting it off are even lower. Notable examples: Battle Royale, Die Hard, The Fast and the Furious. So many actions movies are guilty of this. The regular conversations of firearms, namely the notion that they can only hold a finite amount of bullets, is routinely ignored whether they are firing from a motorcycle, out of a car window, or on top of a building. These characters have no time to reload their guns, and that's fine, considering their weapons never seem to run out of ammunition even when a character does reload his or gun. It's after an absence number of missed shots, leaving your hair down. Notable examples: Wonder Woman, Iron Man 2. This trope tends to crop up most in superhero action movies. since the characters are based on comic books character. In comics, heroes can rock vast land hair while still fighting crime. They are just drawings after all. But that logic does not exactly translate to live action films. Luckily, Marvel has corrected this film with the character of Black Widow during her first appearance in Iron Man 2. She goes up against bad guys with a name made of loose calls that somehow never get tangled, but in her standardable movie back Black Widow sports is pulled back, braided style jets while more practical. Notable examples Transforms Independence Day, The Dark Knight. Would it really be an action movie without an overwhelming amount of explosion? When is doubt, set something on fire, make it turn into the sweetness. It does not matter if it's building or vehicle. If it can hold a bomb, it's fair game. Explosions are the bread and butter of the action movie genre, but at times they can become a little too heavy blended. When used often enough, they become almost comical. There are other more nuanced ways to inject a storyline with suspense and thrill without defaulting to blowing something up. Since the release of the original John Wick in 2014, the eponymous character has achieved an almost mythical status, both in real life and his own universe. He is an unstoppable force of an assassination, capable of facing entire armies of indistinct mobster gums single-handed. The character's pencil and record alone is enough to make him notorious. However, he is also a sympathetic character. In the first film, the ex-assassin's wife dies of cancer. In his mourning, Vic finds a new purpose in taking care of the puppy his wife leaves for him. When the punk son of high-profile Russian mobster robs him and kills his dog, Vic returns to the assassin's life and revenge quest. The ensuing story follows the vengeance and redemptions of a character with too few reasons to live and too many dead bodies on his conscience. The ending to this story does provide solid closure, but it is also still enough to expose on the original film. That's how we get John Wick Chapter 2. What happened to John Wick in Chapter 2? Instead of being its own story, John Wick Chapter 2 acts as more of a continuation, while the last film ended with Jones achieving victory over the people who killed his dog and stole his car. Chapter 2 concludes with mixed results. On one hand, John finally takes on Santino D'Antonio, the Italian mob boss who bailed him for his second retirement after the events of the first film. On the other hand, John kills D'Antonio on the grounds of the Continental Hotel, leaving his fate uncertain. According to the underground organization's rules, John is excommunicated. He can no longer use Continental service, and every professional hitman on the plant is gunning for his head. It seems like everything is at a net loss of John in the end. Even he got what he wanted. Still, John stays as pleased as ever. He warns Winston, manager of the Continental, that he will kill any assassins that come for him. Winston hands him a marker, a locket symbolizing an unbreakable agreement for later use, and bids John adieu. John runs off as our assassins in New York City, prepare to hunt him down. What does it all mean? The universe of John Wick hangs on concepts like revenge and redemption, overaction and consequences. In one of the final fight sequences of Chapter 2, John is led into a hall of mirrors, not to dissimilar from the one is Enter the Dragon. The hall is an art piece built to encourage self-reflections. It's an appropriate place and time for D'Antonio to pick apart John's character. He labels John as addict for revenge. John does not dispute this claim. In fact, his whole character arc in Chapter 2 is about him sinking deeper into the addiction. Wanted to explore what would happen if the worst man in the world found salvation, said writer Drag clustered in the first movie's production's notes. Would it be true to his core when the source of his salvation is deprived away from him? What happens? Do the gates of heads open? If the first John Wick was about what happens when doors gates open, then the sequel is about what happens when they are not allowed to close. Evid- Evidently, it does not mean anything good for the people holding the gate open. At the same time, it does not mean anything good for John either. He may have a mythical reputation as a booby man, but he is still very human, with every assassin's on God's green earth after him. The movie leaves the audience unsure if a man like John Wick can even survive the trial ahead. The John Wick franchise has been a since the first film came out in 2014. The massive critical and audience hit meant star Keanu Reeves, writer, creator Derek Kolstad, and director could continue Wick's story if they wanted, and they did, adding John Wick Chapter 2 in 2017 and John Wick Chapter 3 Rebellion in 2019. While there are plans to film the fourth and fifth chapters back to back, unforeseen circumstances led to a change in schedule. The fourth installment is expected to be released in 2022, while the fifth release is yet to be the announced ATV prequel. The Continental is reportedly being developed for stars. In addition to Reeves, the franchise features Lan Amsishan, Lan Reddick, and John Leguizamo in recurring roles. The story is simple. A legendary assassin comes out of retirement when the son of a mobster attacks him, murders his puppy, and steals his car. Okay, it's a little more complicated. The puppy was a gift from his now deceased wife, and the car is, well, freaking awesome. What sets the actioners apart from others is the detailed world building. The Continental has counterparts worldwide and is natural. Grange's office handing out assignment uses old-fashioned telephone switch keyboards. There are specialized markers, tickers, and other touches that fully immerse the audience in the assassin's world. If you like your action picture with self-contained world and a bit more flair, here are 17 other movies like John Wick you need to watch before you die. Released in 2006, Crank starred action stalwart Jason Statham as Jeff Chalios, an assassin who is betrayed by an upstart hitman who wants to take his place. While sleeping, Chalios is injected with a poison that affects the production of gradually killing him. Chalios must keep his adrenaline running high in order to survive long enough to find an antidote or at least get revenge. Anything less than heart-charging activity and his heart will stop for good. Statham was already an expert at this type of role, and it's fun to watch him basically rampage across Los Angeles, doing everything he can to keep his heart pumping, including a very public sexual encounter with his girlfriend, Eve, played by Army Smart. There are fight galore as Chelios seek out the man who poisoned him, and each one step to next as Chelios must have the stakes himself in order to stay alive. First-time directors Mark Neville and Brian Trailer, who also wrote the script, pace the film like a wild video game, with each action more out coverages than the next. A cute after-credit scene puts a nice button on the whole film. A sequel called Crank High Voltage was released in 2009. The 2011 film Kill List adds psychological horror to its crime tale for a creepily intense experience. Directed by Ben Welty, who co-wrote to the script with Amy Jump. Kill List stars Neil Maskell as Jay, an ex-soldier who has become an assassin and is hunted by our past missions. Jay unwittingly winds up in a blood contract for a mysterious client with a list of people he wants Jay and his friend. Michael's Smiley's goal to murder. Things do not to go according to plan. More twisted than twisted. Kill list layer on occult symbolism and darker theme than the usual tale of hitman pursuing a target, or in this case, multiple targets. Neither Jay or Gal seem to notice the strange behavior of Gal's girlfriend, or nor do they seem to realize something seriously amiss. Beyond the usual, client is unhappy with this service trope of hitman drams. When they decide to bail out of the contract and bizarre things begin happening, Kill List starts like a crime thriller and ends more like the Wicker Man. Fans of Welch's latest slice of cosmic horror 2021's in the art will definitely want to seek out this underseen gem. Director Michael Mann's stylish thriller from 2004 cast Tom Cruise against his usual heroic type of hitman named Vincent with a job to do and no transcription to finish it. He commands a cab driven by Jamie Foxx's mild-mannered Max and forces him to drive all over Los Angeles so he can complete his skills. At first, Max thinks he's got a rich fare, as Vincent offers him a lot of money to make several steps. Since Max wants to open his own driving service, he agrees. It only takes one body dropping for Max to realize he's made a terrible error in judgment. But it's too late, as Vincent forces Max at gunpoint to continue being his driver. The interaction between the two is filled with tension, all bathed in neo-noir lighting and exhibiting man's interest in what makes man tick. The conversations between the two are significant and layered as Vincent, intelligent but cold demeanor comes up against Mac's warmer personality, even though both men share the trait and of being detail-oriented. Both Cruise and Fox's scratch as actors, making Collateral well worth a review. Jason Statham has a cameo in the beginning as well. Although Charles Bronson already had a long and varied career as a sporting actor, it was his output in the 1970s that cemented him as a lead action star. In 1972's The Mechanic, Bronson stars as Arthur Bishop, a well-regarded mechanic slang for assassins, who suffers anxiety and depression because of his stressful life. Michael Winner, with whom Bronson would frequently collaborate, directed. Bronson's real-life wife, Jill Ireland, also appears in the film. As in John Wick, Bishop worked for a secret society with its own rules that must be followed lest he face dire consequences after killing Kanan Wing's Harry McKenna, one of the organization's bigwigs. Bishop meets McKenna's son, Steve, played by 70s heartthrob Jan Michael Vincent. Bishop realizes that Steve has the right temperament to be a mechanic, what with him being a rather sociopathic, and begins taking him along on assignment without the organization's permissions. Turns out Steve is a very good learner, so much so that Bishop may not only have the organization to worry about. The Mechanic was remade in 2011 with Jason Statham and Ben Foster in the Bishop and Steve roles, respectively, which was successful enough to yield a sequel, Mechanic Resurrections, in 2016. It's hard to beat the original for both its portrayal of the mechanic of assassinations and its human elements. Written and directed by French filmmaker Besson Leon, The Professionals was originally released in 1994 as just The Professional in the US. The film is in English and stars Jean Reno as Leon, a cleaner, who ends up teaching the tools of his hitman trade to 12 years old played by Natalia Portman. It's a little problematic, yes, but the revenge action aspects of the film are top notch. Matilda and her family live in the same apartment complex where Leon resides, but Hilaria's father runs a full of grey old man's jaw agent, Norman Stansfield, and she returns home one day to find her family slaughtered. Leon takes her in before she is discovered, and she is the one who requests murder lessons so she can avenge for family. The pair form an odd bond is as school her in weaponry and tactics, and she plots to take an stand fight all herself. Portman is a tiny powerhouse of emotions and magnetism, and her performance ingoes and greatness to come in her adult career. Reno is also quite good, and any time old man plays evil, it's worth seeing. In 2016, the accountant Ben Affleck plays Christian Wolf, an intensely quiet man with high functioning autism who is good with numbers. He uses his special set of skill performing in internal audits to uncover embezzlement, usually for unsavory types involved in criminal enterprises. The content also features Anna Kendrick, J.K. Simmons, Gene Smart, and Johan Lithgow. Wolf go about his business and manage his trigger that his father taught him. Unfortunately, his father, who was in the military, believed the best way to protect Wolf from the world was to expose him to sensory overload in order to numb him to it and to touch him and his brother. Played as an adult by John Bernter, metrical arts and other forms of self-protection, making Wolf rather deadly when crossed. The content sparked conversation around representation of nude diversity in film, but the action in this thriller is above average, and Affleck's strictly yet vulnerable portrayal of a man with a brutally strict moral code deserves to be seen. Charlize Theron stars in director David Leitch's high-octane feature, Atomic Blonde, which was released in 2017 and is based on the graphic novel series. The Cold City by Anthony Johnson. Theron plays Lawrence Broughton, a deadly Mike agent sent to Berlin in 1989 to retrieve the list, a stolen compendium of names of all the spies operating order. Before everyone is exposed, James Massoy, Sophia, and John Goodman also star. Atomic Blonde, with its stature, hues, and exceptional stunt work, drew many comparisons to John Wick when it was released, which makes sense given that Ledge worked on that film. Set in the Vault of Spices, there's plenty of fighting and bullets flying, along with cat and mouse interactions between Broughton and MC Voice Spy. Prevical as Broughton tries to figure out who, if anyone, she can trust, anchored by Theron's killer performance and boasting a blasting soundtrack. Atomic Blonde makes a good double feature with any of the Wick film. The Killer. When director-writer John Hughes' The Killer was released in 1989, one of his tagline was "One Vicky's killer was cop, the thousand bullets." Was can't verify the veracity of that last part. There are certainly plenty of shell casings littering the sense in Wu's heart. Wild tale of killer named Ah Jong, played by Cho Young Fat. Jong's own moral code dictates the talk take one last assessment in order to secure funding to help a woman in accidentally hurt during one of its. On his tail is Inspector Las Young, played by Danny Slee. The killer is filled with whose trademark sentimentality should out galore and white doves moving in slow motion which would become a recurring motive in Who's other films. The killer contains generally action and gore. There's also Who's pure actions with spirituality and humanity. John may being a hitman, but he also only kills his targets and other criminals, going out of his way to protect children and other bystanders. Ying notices this and the two men, and after an abuse in which the triad gang is attempting to eliminate Jong. Jong may be a vicious killer, but his morality sets him above the other gangster Ying seeks to arrest. The ballet-like action sequences alone make the killer watching, but the connection between Jong and Jing move it up to another level. Not to mention its influential place in the section movie Planetarium. Written by John Wick, script direct Colset, and directed by of hardcore Henry Femme 2021's Nobody is a wide right find with mayhem, murder and a kitty cat bracelet, swearing Bob Odenkirk as seemingly mild-mannered Hosh Mansell. Nobody wastes no time to get into the good stuff. Fighting, shootouts, and stuff blowing up real good. Clocking is at Leon 92 minutes. The film is fast-paced and even a bit more touching. Mansell lives a quiet life with his wife, Becca, played by Connie Nelson, and two kids. He is bored with his job, just like an ordinary nobody. Mansell does nothing but give them what they want. However, he hunts them down and after an unrelated altercation on a bus, is targeted by a Russian mobster for revenge. The problem, Mansell is no ordinary man. For that matter, neither is the father, who is played by Christopher Lloyd. During a Twitter watch party for the premiere of Nobody, if you approach the character as if he is addicted to violence and has kept himself in check for 15 years, then the film will really click for you. Or John Crick is Mansell is want you tightly, and once he is unleashed, there is no stopping him. Just like Wick, Nobody is film John Wick fans will enjoy. Released in 1992, El Mariachi is Robert Rodriguez's feature film debut. He wrote and directed the tale of an unnamed man, played by Carlos, who is the victim of mistaken identity. At the same time as he is come to town with his guitar to pursue his dream of becoming a criminal named Azul, played by Renault, with a similar guitar cast, albeit one full of guns and other weapons, breaks out of jail to get revenge on a drug kingpin. The hitman sent after Azul don't know what he looks like, only that he has guitar case and wears back. The young to be manager to escape only to wind up at a bar where the drug lord's love interest, Consuelo Gomes Domino works, the also falls in love with her, unwittingly becoming part of a love triangle. You could almost write a Nitic style and dramatic flair properly tragic tale of a man who wanted nothing more than to be a musician, only to have his dreams shattered in this forest. The Spanish language El Medici was made on ultra low budget $17,000. Two sequel featuring Antonio taking over the role of El 1995's Desperado and 2003 Once Upon a Time in Mexico comprised the Mexico trilogy. A TV show based on the original film was also produced in 2014. It had one season of 71 episodes. Originally intended as one 4-4 film, Quentin Tarantino's Kill Bill was split into two features, with the first chapter, Kill Bill Volume 1, released in 2003. Kill Bill Volume 1 stars Uma Thurman as the bride, as assassin left for dead at her wedding after her former associates massacre everyone in the crotch. She proceeds to wreak harrowing revenge on everyone involved on that fateful day. Lucky Liu, Vivia, Fox, Trevor Annan, Michael Madison, and David Carrot also shot. Tornado loves of Asian action film, rapid fire dialogue, and bloody violence are on fully display as the bride rehabilitates herself after her terrible ordeal and methodical hunts down the assassins who destroyed her happiness. As in John Wick, the Society of Assassins has a code they follow, which the bride apparently violated. The first volume is high styled and focuses on the bride's rehabilitations after lying on a 4-year coma and how she finds and dispatches two of the other deadly Viper Assassinations sequel member. Kill Bill Volume 2 was released in 2004, wherein the brides finished what he starts in burgers. While most of these films are deadly serious, in Bruges proves it's possible to have an action film that's hilarious as well as progressive, released in 2008 and written and directed by Martin MC Dong. In Bruges is a pitch black comedy that features Colin Farrell as Hitman Ray, Brendan Gleeson as Ray's fellow hitman and mentor, Ken and Ralph Fiennes as Harry. Their boss Ray and Ken are hiding because Ray botches a hit, accidentally killing a child. Harry is absolutely livid about it. Killing a child violates the hitman code. Ray and Ken Coulter Hills in Bruges, a city in Belgium, where Ray is bored and Ken is delighted. Harry wants to Ken to dispatch Ray because of the violations of the code, but Ken's not keen on the plan. Harry does not appreciate Ken's disobedience, so he has to Bruges himself. It's only a matter of time before things come to a bloody head. The humor comes from Harry's transactions is deviating from the code, despite acknowledging that what happened with Richard and Ray was a completing accident, as well as some of the attractor Ken and Ray meet while hiding out. MC Donag, also known for 2012 Dark Comedy, Seven Psychopaths, as well as 2017's Three Billboards Outside Ebbing, which named acting Oscar for Francis McDormand and Sam Rockwell, is able to trace the humor from Ray's black predicament, infusing the story of a bunch of killers and report bears with heart as well. Not all contract killers to do it by choice. Some are forced into their life, as happens to Nikita in La Femme. The first film, released in 1990, stars Annie in the title role and was written and directed by Luc Besson. Perilot Nikita is a debauched teen who murders a police officer during a botched robbery. After being jailed, however, she is chosen by the center to be reborn as an assassin or they will kill her. Nikita chooses life as a contract killer. Turns out she is very good at it. To legendary French actress James Mario plays Nikita's handle mentor Avanti, while Jean Reno plays Victor a cleaner. La Femine Nikita is overwrought seeing for Piri Lord's performance, as Nikita is transformed from a junkie to a femme fatale, not to mention a female assassin was but a little terrifying but also sympathetic. The film has been remade twice, once as Black Cat in 1991 and again as Point of No Return in 1993. The latter remake restores Bridge Fonda in Prelord's role. The film has also been adapted twice as a television series, 1997's Lee Femme Nikita and 2010 Nikita. Matilda from Leon, the professional, is not the only young assassin on the list. In 2011, Ronan played the title role in Hanna, about 15-year-old girl whose father teaches her the way of the hitman. Seems Hannah's father, Eric Bana. Eric used to be in the CIA and is being hunted. Eric wants to ensure Hannah's safety, and schooling her on being an assassin is apparently the only way he knows well now how. He does have one ulterior motive. Too, he wants her to kill Marcia, white clerk at the CIA agent who is after him. Well, he has another motive, and it has to do with the dangerous secret he knows about Hannah. Hanna twists and turns as a young assassin, decides to go after Marcia herself and winds up discovering just what is her father has been hiding from all those years. The film marries action with coming of age drama. Runan shows her promise as an actress and is very good as Hannah comes into her own. While Brand's cat is full of menace, director Joe Wright keeps the tensions up and placing tight as Hannah avoids the CIA while heading her straight into a reveal. That shakes up everything a TV serial based on the film. Also called Hanna and had its first season in 2019 and is expected to begin its third season in 2021. The Assassinations Bureau Limited, known as the Assassination Bureau in the US, was released in 1969 and it's darkly comedy like a look of assassins, but without the blackness of Bruges. The film, which is based on unfinished novel by Jack London, stars Oliver Reels and Ivan Rigg as Sonia Winter and Jelly. Winter is a journalist and women's rights activist who discovers a secret organization of assassins, aptly titled the Assassinations Bureaus Limited. Instead of exposing them in her capacity as a journalist, Winter decided to have the head of the Bureaus drag Miloff killed, thinking this will dismantle the whole enterprise. This is a comedy after all, and expose would be too simple. Dragomilov, like others on this list of films, has a strict moral code the filthy Bureau should follow and which it most certainly has not. So he decides to pay into Winter's plan by modifying it. If the warriors can assassinate him, so be it, but he will be gunning for them first. Unfortunately for Dragomilov, there is another layer to this tidy conspiracy, as Lord Bostwick also wants to the other elders eliminated for his own financial gain, not to mention the power he would have by taking over the bureaus himself is internationally ridiculous and complicated and a fun watch as well. Chan Wook Park's Oldboy, released in 2003, is Korean reminiscence about done in the neo-noir style. The film follows on Daiso, played by Choi Min Silk, who is held captive for 15 years, never knowing the why of his imprisonment nor the who behind it. After he is just as mysteriously released, he finds he is still imprisoned in Zinway. He is lost year of his life. His family is dead of missing, and his chapter can still torment him. It takes a while for him to figure out that the inciting event occurred deep in the East part, and that this part has a way of haunting everyone involved. The story is complex and very twisted, pointing out how ultimately hollow revenge is. Unlike other films where revenge is coded as something to cheer for it is deeply sad and comedy here. Park's neo-noir trapping are a perfect fit for the material, which is based on a Japanese managed by Garun, and the ending hits hard. Old Boy has been remade with a Bollywood version in 2006 called Zindwa and an American version in 2013 with its original title. The latter was directed by Spike Lee, but did not enjoy the same critical success as Spike's film. Director John Woo's groundbreaking 1986 honking action film, A Better Tomorrow is considered as the film that Chov Yon Fat into a super faster. In Asia, Chow plays Mark, a member of the criminal, tried along with his friend, Sung, who played by T. Lung. This version of the tried as counter fighters, and both Mark and are in the tried sub upper echelon. Jackie's brother, Kid, played by Leslie Cheung, is in a cop. However, want to get straight, but as usually happens when a criminal says that will do one last job, Tingo Highway and goes to prison. Once released, discovers Mark is no longer a tried bigwig, and that's G, whose former apprentice wears Liz Shing. Easy Boss is strangled from Kit, who is obsessed with bringing down the tried. Who minus the tension between the TC whose dedications to his brother and his allegations to his best friend while meditating on what makes a family, albeit with the early dose of his trademark bloodshed. The relationship between Tassie Hockett and Mark are the emotional heart of the film. One sequel, A Better Tomorrow 2, was released in 1987, and a prequel, A Better Tomorrow, A Love and Death in Saigon in 1989. The latter was directed by After the End, who had a falling out. A Hindi version, Artist, was released in 1994. There's also a 2010 Korean version and a 2018 Chinese remake, A Better Tomorrow 2018. When you get a John Wick alum like directed David Leitch and pair him with Marvel's Mark with a mouth, you get an action comedy experience spraying with blood and explosive action at nearly every turn. She is the titular assassin for hire to save a young merchant who's being mounted by a futuristic soldiers and have some fun along the way. The first Deadpool movie delivered plenty of wild actions that saw plenty of bloodshed come at the hands of the hero, Ryan, but Deadpool 2 takes him to a whole other level of wild madness. There are intense fights that see Deadpool scratch the limit of his immortality, and one incredible high-speed car chase sequence full of bloody blows, hilarious carnage, and even Deadpool trying and falling to repeat his dual swordsman from X-Men Origins, Wolverine, plus the luck of Domino. Zazie beats because of tone of explosive moments and the way she can cause people to die without really doing much is both hilarious and jaw-dropping. South Korea has become a thrilling area in the world for interesting and ambitious films. Any Man from Nowhere is one of the best action films to come from there on the last decade. The film follows a quiet pawn shop owner with a traumatic past who's ensnared in violent war between gangs after his only friend is taken. Just from the premise and tone alone, The Man from Nowhere has all the John Wick vibes fans want in their action flicks and is get all the brilliant hero. The film features no shortage of blood, fueled action, and with its main characters willing to be whatever it takes to save his friend, the man from nowhere, spares no mercy in dishing out its good. It also features being a much darker role than what is unusually known for, so it's a great way for fans of Keys to see him in a new light. The Man from Nowhere is perfect gateway film for those looking to delve into the South Korean thrilling film scene and won't disappointed in the thrilling explosion it provides. The night comes up soon. Another international jet action films will certainly want to check out is 2018 Indonesian thriller The Night Comes for Us, which is just primed and ready to be seized on Netflix. And the film seems crime enforcer to Joy Realism turn his back on everyone to save a young girl. This leads to him becoming a wanted man by virtually everyone, especially a young prospectus named Aaron Loco Oves, looking to earn some power of his own and putting him in a fight for survival. The Night Comes for Us is a classic action premise done definitely through its stylish action that will leave you stunned by its. There are plenty of bone snapping hits and blood spewing splashes that all certainly make any viewer's stomach turn, and a factory fight scene full of incredible choreography and violent action. It's also blessed to see its and Arian's feud grow throughout the film, and once they clash, it feels like two badass titans fighting for supremacy. Action fantastics will undoubtedly keep out by what the night comes for us has to for offer, and will be very pleased to find two incredible action stars to tell some and always who will instantly obsess our. Since we are already talking about always enjoy realism, there's no way we could not mention the update. Redemption says is the film that cements both of them. Mainly always was as action stars and is just plain incredible to watch. The film sees play Rama, a rookie member of Special Forces team set to perform a raid on a dangerous drug lord. When he rapid takes a nasty turn and most of Rama's team is wiped out, he is forced into a gruesome fight for his life as he works to kill the drug lord. Those that have seen the Rapid Redemptions or its sequel, Rapid 2, know that these films pack a brutal punch. With a film utilizing the traditional Indonesian martial art of pancake salad, which involves the entire body and different forms of striking and grapples, it's a visual masterclass of action. The fight scenes have that same kind of incredible flow that the John Wick film have. The US just look like a masterful badass in every fight scene, with all the tension being built up as Rama gets closer to facing the Rock Lord. The Red Redemption is a total thrill ride and will leave you breathless after Rama takes down a seemingly endless number of force. The Rapid Redemption is a modern classic of the action genre no fan should miss out on, and adding in the second film makes for a killer double feature.